this particular case with the bulletin board system. So we use this bulletin board system to process all of our medical claims. All right. So we basically became a clearinghouse so that people like us around the country could take all of the files that they had collected, send them to us. We would reformat them into the format for all the payees and send it out. Right. Well, at that time, there were all these different bulletin board systems out there that were kind of dying on the vine because the internet was just starting to come together, and it was this transition that was taking place. You know, that's when you started to see Prodigy and CompuServe go away, and AOL was the winner for a time. And so I'm going to these conferences where the only bulletin board manufacturer was Wildcat BBS. They went public and they raised $6, $7, $8 million, which they thought was all the money in the world at that time. And they were trying to find a way to bring on entrepreneurs onto their platform, because at that time there were only three things you did with a bulletin board. It was either gaming, it was downloading software files for your applications, you know, so you wouldn't have to have them mailed out to you. And then it was the sex industry, basically. They're the first ones to lead just about any industry. And so to break into a new industry where entrepreneurs were making money, you know, they had me come to panels. And so I met a guy in California that was connecting his BBS to the internet right now at that time. And he said, look, I've got investors, because I'm living in Wisconsin at this time. I have investors in California. I have these 14-year-olds that are tech support people, and their fathers are doctors, and they hate practicing medicine right now. And they're looking for, you know, they have connections back to China and Singapore, and they want to bring money into the US, and they want to focus it on the internet. So if you had millions of dollars, what would you do? And I said, I would franchise the internet. And he's like, franchise the internet, you know, because at that time there was a magazine in Colorado called Boardwatch, and it would kind of allow all the independents around the country to send their listing up there. And so if you got a copy of that, it would give you some of your options that might be local or long distance style to get into the internet. I said, yeah, I would franchise this, you know, let's get a common name around the country. And so I put that plan together, literally shipped it off to him. He called back and says, they're in, they want to meet you. I flew out, they committed $5 million. I mean, this all happened in an afternoon at a Chinese restaurant with a Lazy Susan, you know, where all the different meals are there, and it's a circle table and you take a little bit of everything. And I got educated at that time that those tables are all round on purpose so that no one sits at the head of the table. But I mean, and now I'm shaking hands and we've raised millions of dollars. And I remember walking out of there going, is that how that's done? You know, I walked in there and I, you know, I'm not a college graduate. I hadn't taken business to this level of success yet. Later on, I asked them, I said, what the heck made you invest in me? You know, what part? They said, your enthusiasm, 100%. Your self-belief, your enthusiasm, your passion, you basically had us sold. You had us convinced. Beyond speculation of numbers and everything else, it was just you were so convinced that this was the way to go. We bought into it, right?
Wow. So how long was that? How long was that runway with capital before it fell apart? And what'd you learn in regards to requesting for capital? Because they didn't just deposit $5 million in your bank account the next day, right?
No, they didn't. It was done as, this is where I start to learn things that I didn't know back then, and that's that it was done as a convertible debenture, and it was done in tiers, and we had to reach certain benchmarks for each tier, and they, you know, they negotiated other rights to that stock, anti-dilution, and all kinds of different ratchets and things that, of course, I was a little naive to at the time, but just, you know, kind of seeing stars in the eyes. I'm telling you, in 1993, $5 million to this little, you know, rural Nebraska boy was all the money in the world. Like, how could we possibly spend this money, right? Yeah. So within 9 months, we were out of money, needed more because the equipment costs, you know, right when we roll this thing out, it's 14.4, then it becomes 28.8, then it becomes 56K. And back then it wasn't just a software upgrade. It actually required all of your hardware.
Is all of your hardware being deprecated month by month? Yeah.
Obsolete. Yeah.
Right. So there's a side of the business model, right? You could have never predicted, right? Like that's a fatal flaw in that business model. Right.
Could have never. The other side of it too is the telephone company ends up becoming our biggest competitor.